Welcome to Focus on Abilities, a program about issues affecting the lives of people with disabilities. I'm Lex Frieden. I'll be your host for today's program. I'm professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, and I direct the Independent Living Research Utilization Program at TIR Memorial Hermann in the Texas Medical Center. We're glad you joined us today. We have an interesting program, and we'll be right back with our great guest right after this break. Please stay tuned. Thank you for watching Focus on Abilities today. I'm Lex Frieden, and we have with us a very special guest. Sashi Nasinkharao is a research assistant and a legal assistant, and my authority on the ADA here at the Southwest ADA Center at TIR Memorial Hermann. Sashi, thanks for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me, Lex.
So Sashi, what exactly do? You have a lot of titles, and I know you've been with us for some time, and if I have a question about ADA, you're the go-to person, among several I might add. What is your job title officially?
So officially, I'm a technical assistance specialist at the Southwest ADA Center. And what I do, along with a few of my other colleagues, is provide technical assistance and training on disability-related issues, which includes the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, but it also includes fair housing, transportation, the 2010 standards for accessible design. So you name it, we do training and over the phone, mostly technical assistance on those issues.
So you're an attorney.
Yes.
What focused you in your training on the ADA? What inspired you to want to become an ADA lawyer, a specialist in that particular law?
So I think initially, after I got out of law school, I wasn't initially seeing myself working in disability issues. And as I started to work around in the community, like between the time that I had taken the bar exam and when I was waiting for the results, I started to kind of delve into more ADA issues and learned that that would potentially be the area that I wanted to focus on and seek employment in. And then that, coupled with the fact that I myself have a disability, I have a visual impairment that I've had since I was born, I think all of that put together kind of pushed me in this direction.
Now, you mentioned you do have a visual impairment.
Yes.
What specific aspect of blindness do you have?
I have an optic nerve, like severe optic nerve damage from basically when I was born to around when I was a young toddler. So my entire life I've had to deal with not a progressive vision loss, but just a steady, my vision has stayed the same for the most part.
So you have a little vision.
Yes.
But it's distorted as a result of
an optic nerve damage.
The condition, the optic nerve damage.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that it has been somewhat progressive before when you were young?
Yeah.
You could see more?
Yes, I could see more when I was younger. It's gotten a little worse, but it's kind of leveled off. I don't have any vision in my left eye, and then in my right eye I have mostly like central vision, not very good peripheral vision.
That must be frustrating.
Yeah, I think at times it can be. There are times like when I'm at like a spectator sport, like if I'm at a baseball game or something or a basketball game, it can be kind of, because you want to be a part of that, the crowd participation and everything. But for the most part, I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise to have a disability from birth, because I don't know any other way. So I've just spent my entire life trying to get used to
So
this.
your opinion is, if you had the choice of having blindness late in life or having it as a youth or from a very young age, you'd prefer to have it younger, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're just more resilient when we're younger, and at least for myself, I can't imagine how I would handle losing my vision like either progressively or all at once when I was older.
So you've progressively, as you've progressively lost your vision, you've also progressively gained adaptive skills.
Yes.
That's a good point, but I'm not sure everybody would agree with you or make the same choice, and I doubt that any of us actually have the opportunity to make such a choice.
Yeah.
But you've obviously made the best of the cards you were dealt. And did you ever in life ever have a circumstance or a time when you said, well, I got to get over this and quit worrying about it, or have you always just been an active person and dealing with the issues?
I think the most recent time I can remember, it's happened a few times, but I think the most recent time is when I took the bar exam the first time and had some issues getting accommodations. And then, as it were, I didn't pass the exam. And the first time I took it, and I think that was the first time that I had like failed an exam of that magnitude.
So it was kind of a catch your breath
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
whether you had to decide to gut it out and figure out how to do it or just go on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think after, talking to my family and talking to my friends and colleagues who had gone to law school who had, some of whom actually didn't pass the first time either, it really, at the time, I think it seems like the biggest, your biggest failure, your biggest upset, and you're not going to get over it. And then they just talked some sense into me and said, you need to take it again. And I did and passed. And that was like a few years ago. And now I think about it and it just seems like such a small event.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've talked to a lot of lawyers and student lawyers and so on. And I think expecting to pass it the first time may be a high expectation for anyone. So you did a good job getting through it. In any case, do you feel like that first experience was conditioned as a result of your disability, and that if accommodations had been properly provided, you might have passed it?
I think so. I think it was a mixture of nerves, obviously, and also not being accommodated. There was it was a little bit of a mix-up in my accommodations, what I requested and what I ended up receiving.
So what, you asked somebody
exam
to help you with a reader and they sent you a sign language interpreter?
They sent a reader who was a proctor for the exam, not a qualified reader, which if you know anything about the ADA and you know some things about interpreters and readers, you know that they need to be at least a little bit qualified to read the material on an exam. So I think that was, like the shock of hearing that when you're gonna sit for this 3-day exam is like, initially it's tough to get past that, I think.
Okay.
So I think, yeah.
All right. Sashi, I want to take a break here, but we're going to come back and talk more about the kinds of experiences that visually impaired and other people with disabilities have, things they confront that the ADA may be able to help them with.
Sure.
So you all please stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting next segment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Focus on Abilities on HTV. I'm Lex Frieden. We're here with Sashi. Sashi, you had personal experience with disability, obviously. You had personal experience with discrimination based on disability. Probably not only the experience you had in the testing facility, right?
Yes.
Did those experiences give you some appreciation for the ADA that made you think, as an attorney, you might be able to help people deal with some of the issues?
Absolutely. I think that personal experience really sort of informed my own, the way that I interact with our consumers, with the people who reach out to us, with the people who seek training from us. I think that, coupled with a little bit of perspective, so if you indulge me for a second. So my parents came here in the late 80s from India, and after they had me and found out that I had a visual impairment, they were seriously considering moving back to India because they didn't know how they were going to raise a child with a visual impairment here in America, where, I mean, they had some family, but not a lot of family.
So that's interesting. So they at first thought maybe that because they understood the culture in India better than here, and they knew how people with disabilities were treated in India, that they might be more comfortable, or you might be ultimately in India than in the U.S., but that was based on the lack of information they had about how the culture might treat people with disabilities in the U.S., right?
Yeah, I don't think they were here long enough to know that it was just, you know, leaps and bounds better here than it would be in India, because I look now and I'm thinking, you know, my education would have suffered so much more had I probably would have gotten like a similar quality, like caliber education, but I don't think I would have been like offered any of the accommodations that I receive here, and put on, you know, certain accommodation plans and things like that throughout school. I wouldn't have had the same opportunities in India.
Well, the good news is I think that's changing in India,
Yeah.
and today young people with disabilities may get more accommodations than they would have when you were a child.
Right.
But nonetheless, we're glad your parents decided to stay, and I suppose you are too.
Yeah.
The people with disabilities that you meet and talk to, and I know you give a lot of public presentations at groups and organizations talking about the ADA and what you do as an attorney, helping people deal with barriers and discrimination. And you also talk to many people on the telephone. That's mostly why we do technical assistance. Do those people, did they ever know you yourself have a disability and experience some of these issues? Do you ever reveal that to them?
Yeah, I think people who we are live training, they know that I have a visual impairment, because I'll oftentimes use Braille while I'm presenting, you know, for notes and things like that. Sometimes on the phone, I actually will tell people that I have a disability if they also have a visual impairment, and could benefit from the same or similar
Do you
accommodations.
feel like that changes the dynamic of the conversation?
Yeah, I think people are more forthcoming, and, you know, they're more honest, and I think they just feel more comfortable with you talking, because it's not easy. I think we get people sometimes who are at their most vulnerable, you know, place in life, and they may not know, you know, what their next move is going to be. And so,
Well, we've always said that peer counseling sometimes is more valuable than professional counseling, but to have both a peer who is a professional is like best of both worlds,
yeah,
right?
Agreed. It really is. So it doesn't happen very often that I will tell people that I have a disability, but yeah, occasionally I do.
But as you said, when you're making a live presentation, it may be evident to people by the way you behave and the aids that you use and so on and
Yes,
so forth.
all the time.
Do you enjoy that, making public presentations?
It's my favorite part of my job.
So anybody who's watching that has an organization or a group and wants to learn about the ADA, they can call the number and try to book Sashi, right?
Yes. We have a training coordinator at the Southwest ADA Center, and the way you can actually get in touch with Southwest ADA Center is 1-800-949-4232. And that's where you would call for technical assistance and for training requests. And we tailor our trainings according to who is requesting them. So it's good, because you're not going to get like a, you know, one-size-fits-all kind of training.
So the attorneys and legal assistants at the Southwest ADA Center, 1-800-949-4232. If you have a disability-related issue that you think might be discrimination, they can provide you with some information. You don't actually represent people in lawsuits or anything like that, right?
No, we don't provide direct legal assistance. We will refer people out depending on which part of the region, our region, that they live in, and usually, you know, we'll refer them to legal aid, which is free legal assistance. We might also refer them to a local bar association or their local Center for Independent Living, and we also, you know, provide documents and publications depending on the issue that they're facing.
Effectively, you empower people through information.
Yes.
And you can hear a story, help determine whether that was a form of discrimination or not, and then tell them what the law, not only the ADA, but other disability-related laws may have, what the implications of that are, right?
Yes.
How many calls do you answer a day?
Oh gosh, it depends. I think Mondays tend to be really busy. People over the weekend will have different experiences and might reach out to us. Let's say Monday and maybe Thursday or something like that.
What's the most frequent kind of complaint you hear about?
We hear most about service animals.
People who are guide dog users,
Yes.
who are prevented from entering hotels, restaurants, other public places, right?
Establishments, like businesses, but also if they're trying to live with their service animal in an apartment complex, they face an uphill battle when they try to do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So we hear.
So in
about
addition
that.
to service animals, what sector of the economy do you hear the most complaints about?
Probably like maybe hospitality, I would say. So that includes restaurants and hotels. And it could entail a service animal complaint. It could also be just being discriminated against because the hotel doesn't
But
want
I use a wheelchair,
Yes.
and restaurants are the bane to my existence because even the new ones come and they've got maybe advice from an attorney or an ADA expert, and yet they will have tables that are too low for me to fit under, or they will put their seating up a level without a ramp and I can't get there,
Right.
and that's frustrating.
I know, I understand. People will call us on the spot, actually. They'll call us from the business and they'll complain, and we have to give them the appropriate places to make complaints.
Right.
And so it's a time sensitive issue sometimes.
Well, if you have an issue, again, call Sashi, 1-800-949-4232. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Thank you for being with us today on Focus on Abilities. I'm Lex, and this is Sashi. We're talking about the ADA and Sashi's work as an ADA technical assistance provider. And Sashi, we mentioned one issue that I hear about in my travels and meeting with people, and that is housing. Since Harvey in Houston, a lot of people are in new housing. They've had to find new housing. They've replaced their housing. They've had to move to other units and so on and so forth. And they have been frustrated by some of the rules that the apartment managers have or the homeowners association have that prevent them from parking in a wheelchair accessible handicapped spot, so to speak, or that prevent them or discourage them from having an animal that's a helper animal. You hear many of those types of complaints?
Yeah, I think housing is a huge chunk of the kind of complaints that we receive, and you're right. I think a lot of people are experiencing pushback from either their landlord or from an HOA, a homeowner association, for different reasons. Either if they have a accessible parking tag and they want to park in front of their townhome, or if they want to park in a space that's closest to their apartment or their apartment unit, they're getting pushback from the landlord or from the HOA because it's not in keeping with the parking policy at the building. And the way that these residents can deal with that, residents or tenants, is by making a request for a reasonable accommodation. And parking is specified as probably the most common type of accommodation.
So if I moved into an apartment and they told me I couldn't park near my unit because the parking assigned to me was half a block away in the parking area or whatever, and I disagreed with that, I need to park nearby,
Yes.
I could make a request for reasonable accommodation. What do I do? Just write it out on a piece of paper and take it to the apartment manager and say, here, I'm requesting to move my spot? I already had a conversation with them. They told me no.
I understand. So there's actually no requirement that you make a request in writing, but we do recommend when people call us and ask us how they should do this, we do recommend that they actually make the request in writing, and that's so that you have a record of submitting it and you can show that the landlord or the HOA received your request.
But it could be like an email chain.
Could be an email chain. It could be literally just writing it on a piece of paper, handwritten. And you may or may not have to provide some kind of medical documentation depending on the kind of disability you have.
So I can see if it's a big apartment complex or a part of a chain or something, then the manager looks at that, they don't know what to do with it, so they send it to the next manager, then eventually winds up in legal, and legal tells them, you got to move the spot, and that'll be that, right?
Yes.
What about a smaller unit where the landlord is the on-site manager and they make their own rules?
I think the best way to make sure that that you are getting the accommodation that you request, whether it's for parking or any other kind of reasonable accommodation, is to inform the landlord. So make sure that they're armed with the proper information. So that means providing them with your request, but also with the relevant publication from the DOJ.
When you say the landlord, you mean the owner of the property?
Yes.
And not the on-site manager, who may not be the same person.
Yeah, so it could, and even if it were, you still want to copy the authorities for that building, the management, the ownership. Sometimes if they might have a private management company, sometimes it very well could be the same person, but you want to make sure that you are providing the relevant publication for.
How do you find out who the landlord is?
It's tough, I know, and sometimes, our consumers will call us and say, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
So it is best just first to establish communication with the manager who is there, and then sometimes like on your leasing agreement or depending on where you send your check, it'll say who is the property owner, or who's the if it's like a large private management company, it'll say that as well.
And if they need help, they can call you or your colleagues.
Yes.
And by the way, that number's good all over Texas, all over the United States.
All over the United States.
You may not be able to reach Sashi if you're calling from Minnesota, but you will talk to somebody who has this information. And so I know focus streams all over the country, all over the world, but you can get ADA assistance through that number anywhere. And this is a big issue, the housing issue. Sometimes you do need somebody who can help you work through the issue. Sashi, as a practical matter, once you get that request made and they know that you're really serious about it and you know what your rights are, is it often just easily resolved that they go ahead and let you have what you need to have?
I think I don't know if it's often, but it's kind of a mixed bag. I think sometimes people they'll see that you have an accessible parking tag and they'll say, yes, we'll give you this spot.
Okay.
And sometimes you might get a little bit of pushback.
So the bad news is that you may actually have to seek an attorney to represent you at some point, or less expensive, file a complaint, right?
Yes, a
and
HUD
the complaint in that case would be filed with whom?
With either the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, or with the Department of Justice.
Okay, so you have two options there. Again, if you're curious about this, if you run into the issue, get expert assistance, and you can do that through the Southwest ADA Center.
Yes.
Sashi, we're nearing the end of our program. You do a lot of work on ADA, but you must have a life outside of ADA. I know you sing and dance.
I sing. I don't dance. I try to dance. It doesn't work.
How can you sing without dancing?
I guess I try to be the best singer I can so that I don't have to dance. Ever since I was a kid, I've been classically trained. So I started out being classically trained in Indian music and traditional Indian vocals. And then as I got older, I took choir and...
So do you have a YouTube channel? If somebody wants to watch you sing or hear you sing, do they have to wait till next year's Abilities Expo, or where are you going to sing next?
I don't have a YouTube channel, but I think my performances have been put on YouTube by other people.
Okay.
They're on Facebook too.
People are Googling your name now.
I think the next time I will sing is at Real Abilities next year.
Real Abilities, great program.
Yeah.
Sashi, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much.
We've learned a lot about the ADA and a lot about you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching. We'll be right back with a closing thought on Focus on Abilities. Thank you for watching Focus on Abilities today. We've had a great program and we've learned a lot about people's rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act and how to get technical assistance or information if you're not sure about what your rights are or what to do about it if you've been discriminated against or feel like you have. The number to call anywhere is 1-800-949-4232, and somebody on the end of that line will answer the phone and help you sort of figure out where you're at, what the issues are, and what kind of laws might be available to help protect your rights. We sure do appreciate HTV covering this program, this important subject, and producing it today. We want to thank Tier Memorial Hermann for hosting us, and we want to thank you for watching. And we hope you come back next time to watch Focus on Abilities. I'm Lex Frieden. Have a great day.